Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Sentry Enterprise SentryCards Product Introduction for the Software House Portfolio. My name is Kelsey Burke, and I am the Product Manager for OEM Solutions for Software House. Our expert panelists today from Sentry Enterprise will present the SentryCard Biometric Multi-Factor Authentication Smart Card utilized for physical security, and logical access. In today's session, we will dive into a robust discussion of the card technology, as well as a demo of the product. Our panelists joining me today are John Calzaretta, President and Chief Revenue Officer at Sentry Enterprise, and Darren Weeder, Senior Vice President of Sales, also with Sentry Enterprise. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. The webinar is in listen-only mode. However, we will be taking questions throughout the presentation, so please add your questions using the GoToWebinar control panel. Also, the webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent to all attendees after the webinar concludes today. So now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Darren and John.
Thank you, Kelsey. Good morning, everybody. John Calzaretta, President and Chief Revenue Officer at Sentry Enterprises. Pleasure to be with you again today. We're thrilled to be in partnership with Software House and excited to share what our biometric Sentry card is all about. With me today is Darren Weeder, our Senior Vice President of Sales and Demo and Product Extraordinaire. And I'm going to turn it over to Darren to introduce you to our company with some brief backdrop slides, and then look to spend the majority of our time demonstrating the product and answering any questions that come about. So please feel free throughout to ask your questions. And with that, let me throw it over to Darren.
Thanks, John. Well, good morning, everybody. Very, very excited to be here and share with you our technology today. It is something that is a game changer in the world. Again, as John said, we're going to break this up into a couple little segments. Quickly, we're going to do a little housekeeping and go over some information. Then we're going to go over our physical security. Then we're going to show logical security. And at the end, we're going to show you our incredible ability of how you enroll your biometrics on the card. A little teaser, everything is done on the card. There is no enrollment readers, there's no software. We work with all of your existing access control devices as today. Little teaser, but we'll get back to that. All right. So, a couple things in our housekeeping. We are an American manufacturer. We own all the patents on the equipment, the devices, the technology, and the manufacturing. We do all of it in the state of Pennsylvania, just south of Philadelphia, in a little location called Westchester, Pennsylvania. And we own all of the technology that is manufacturing this, and we'll go through some of the cool things that we do differently. We're all about thin tech. We take a card the size that you know it today, an ISO card, and we add an awful lot of technology into it. We don't reinvent the wheel and build new technology. We take the best of breed technology. Example, we are the only partner in the world with software or with HID that has access to everything. Everybody's familiar with HID. They have 85% of the card technology in the world, and we're the first partner with them that have access to Prox, iClass, iClass SE, CIOS, even the new CIOS applet, which is very new, Corporate 1000, and we even do Elite Key. And the reason I stress those is everybody knows how tightly HID has protected those. And the reason they've included us is they love what we're doing with the cards, and they don't have the ability to do this. They've tried and haven't been able to. And again, we are the worldwide leader in this thin technology of hot lamination cards. Okay. We also do partner with Leaf. We also work with Legic, Desfair, MyFair, EV1, EV2, and FIDO2. So it is the card as you see it here. It's a card with a biometric sensor on it. What's very important here today as you think about everything you're doing, all the security you're selling today, every facet of it, including your multi-factor, is all based on identity, utilizing and stressing people's integrity. Today, as we have a standard HID card, The only way it's secure is if you don't share it, and your integrity keeps you from sharing it. Your integrity stops you from sharing a password. Your integrity stops you from sharing PINs or even remote access using Duo, Ping, Okta, anything else. It's all based on your integrity. We need to change that and stop building security to keep people with integrity secure. We need to start building security to keep people who don't have integrity secure. A little bit about our card. There's an awful lot of technology in it. The card as you know it today from HID, their Prox, their iClass, and their CS card is about 32 to 33 mils thick. Our card is a little bit thicker. It's about 34 to 36 mils thick. It works in all of the existing printers today that do retransfer. We don't do well because we have a little bit of texture in our card with a direct-to-card printer when each ribbon goes across it one at a time. Works great with the retransfer printers. Within our card, as I shared with you, we have a lot of really cool technology. The sensor is made by a company called FPC. Each of you have touched sensors like this many times. If you've ever touched the biometric sensor in an iPhone or an Android, you've touched a sensor like ours. It is made by FPC. There are 1.4 billion sensors like this out in the industry from FPC. We also have a computer in our card. We have a UHF antenna in the card, and the UHF antenna is important. It's the only thing in our card that is not biometrically protected. The UHF antenna is used with the standard HID U90 reader or any UCode 8 long-range reader. The HID U90 reader reads our card at 9 to 15 feet. The long-range UCode 8 readers, depending on your antenna, the longest we've tested is up to 42 feet. We use this UHF antenna for many things involving life safety. Think about putting it over a door when people leave a building. You now get soft egress without them having to present their card. You can put it over a door so you know how many people are in a room, such as capacitance. You can use it for long range for vehicles, so when a car pulls up, they're not opening up the window and reaching out. And the most important one is for mustering. In case of emergency, they can come to a certain area and they're within distance of the reader. Our cards also can have a different combination of sensors in them, antennas, such as the Prox antenna or the iClass antenna or the CS antenna. And we also have an NXP chip in our card. That NXP chip is very important. It meets government standards for FIPS 140.2, which is involving segmentation, security, and storage. On that chip is where we can also put the HID CS applet. We can put the NXP app or the Leaf applet on there and store other things as well. Very robust platform. What also is important is people are developing applets. We can actually load them on the card and biometrically protect them. Okay. We are going to switch screens now. Before we jump into the physical, do we have any questions, Kelsey?
None so far.
Perfect. So what we're going to show you again is physical, then logical, and then we're going to show you enrollment. So in today's world, everybody's familiar with an HID card. Okay. I also have an HID reader here. When you take a card today and place it at the reader, it beeps. Everybody would have to agree, it doesn't matter who's holding the card. In today's world, when you go onto your software house system and you run a report in Secure, you know absolutely what card was used at what door. You don't know who was holding that card. You don't know who was possessing that card, stole that card, or found that card, but you know the card was there. So what was very important to us is to know absolutely who's at the door. Here again is our card. You'll notice it's the same shape, ISO, as the existing HID card, and it's virtually the same exact thickness as the card. Okay, same exact thickness. What's important with the card, though, is when you place our card on the reader, you'll notice it does nothing. The reader can't see it. Until you biometrically authenticate on the card, we don't expose the card information, the HID information, to the reader. I'm going to put my finger on it, put it down, you'll see immediately, what I call within 400 milliseconds, less than half a second, it reads, verifies my finger, and lets me in. Now I'm going to place an unenrolled finger on the card, and when I put it down, you will see the card is now flashing. That is indicating that it's not the right finger, and you'll notice the reader does nothing. Again, incorrect finger, okay. As soon as I put the correct finger down, immediately lets me in. What's very important here is the authentication, verification, and biometric are all done on the card. We're using existing readers that are installed today. A little caveat, if the readers are not installed correctly and they're on metal, especially steel plates and everything else, we do have to put a ferrite shield behind them, a little sticker that goes in the back of the readers to help them, because if readers aren't mounted correctly, they do mess with the signal a little bit, but we do have a fix for that, okay? So now, biometrically authenticate on the card, immediately let me in. What I also want to share with you, it is actually a 360 degree sensor. It doesn't matter what direction I put the correct finger on, as long as it's on there. The card also has a liveness sensor around the edge. So for those of you who think you can cut my finger off and use it, it's really not worth the jail time. You're not getting it anywhere. So think about the ability today, now that you absolutely know who's at the door. If you run a secure report on this reader with this card, and it comes up showing you my card was used, I absolutely was at the door. There's no plausible deniability. The reason is once I've enrolled on my card, this card is locked to me permanently, guaranteeing my absolute use of it, nobody else's. If I lose the card, if it gets stolen from me, I can't lend it out. It won't work for anybody else. In the short term, think of the things you can do with your customers. And here's my challenge to you. Every customer has an MDF, IDF closet in every building that's more important than any other. They have some critical people that get in those closets. Let's just, for story's sake here, say there's 10 people. Let's change the card of those 10 people. All you have to do in the access control system, there's no APIs, there's no software, and no enrollment readers. So where today you have an HID card number in there, you're going to go in there and you're going to change it to our card number from HID in the access control system. Again, no APIs, no enrollment service. You're changing the card number for those 10 people. Now that IT closet became card and biometrics because those 10 people have our card. When they walk up, we've just added protection to that closet. For those of you in the industry know, adding a biometric reader and cabling and server and software is at least $10,000 to $12,000 for that one door. MSRP pricing for those 10 people, you're doing it for less than $1,000, MSRP pricing. The other difference now is not only have you protected that closet, which is critical to the organization for those critical people, but you've also added a biometric security for those 10 critical people for everywhere they go. Their cards are biometrically protected. Since they're critical, they probably have access to a lot of places that we want to protect them. So for that less than $1,000, we've protected a closet and the people. Okay, now's a good time to take a break. Do we have any questions yet?
Nothing's coming.
You guys are a quiet group today. Please ask some questions if you have them. I'm sure there's some things others are thinking. So what I want to show you, again, as you saw in our earlier picture, is we have a transparent card here. I want to go over a few questions, which I'm sure some of you have. But within our card, we've got the sensor termination, we have the MCU. In this case, this is an HID CIOS antenna. Here's the UHF antenna, and here's a battery. The battery we advertise is 32,000 cycles. How we advertise that is it's a 3-year battery based on 2 very simple calculations. On a 365-day calendar year, we say you're going to use the card 340 days. Well, realistically, if you take weekends off, you're only using the card 265 days. We also say on the average day, you're going to use the card 30 times a day. Realistically, for logical and physical, you're going to use the card 15 to 18 times a day. And realistically, the card has 34,000 transactions on it, not 32. So the expectation is the customer is going to use it anywhere from 4.5 to 5+ years of time. No one's going to complain after 3 years if it's still working. The card is not rechargeable. So once it's used up and it's at 10% left, the battery will, or the LED will stop flashing. 10,000 or 10% of 34,000 transactions is 6,800 transactions you still have left on it. So a pretty good amount. Okay. So at that point, the card does get exchanged out and the person gets a new card. A lot of the feedback we get from companies is they don't keep employees for more than 3 years right now, so that comes into play fine. Or within the 4 to 5 year, they'd like to change out the badges and update the pictures regardless. So now you have the ability that you've never had before with every access control system out there to add card and biometrics. And again, that means all HID technology, all Leaf technology, all Legic, does for MyFair, EV1, EV2, and FIDO2. Okay. Now's another good time. Any questions yet?
We had one come in about the battery life, but in the usage. However, I think you just answered that one, Darren. This next one is, can the card have two numbers, one biometrically secure and the other open?
So the answer is yes, and let me give you two examples. One, because the UHF is not biometrically protected, that number is automatically different than the CIOS in this case, okay? So that's part of your answer. The other thing that we've done is, I don't have one with me, but we have some hybrid cards. Hybrids are very important for your customers today because it allows them to migrate to a more secure credential than they have today. And my example is this. I can give you a Prox card that's biometrically protected, which is a 125, or I can give you a 1356 card that's biometrically protected. We can't biometrically protect 125 and 1356 on the same card because the technologies, obviously, with the readers clash. But what we can do is we can give you a biometrically protected EV2 card, a CIOS card, a Legic card, any one of those, and leave the Prox on the card not biometrically protected so that they can use their Prox without their finger at their existing readers. And as they upgrade readers or have critical readers, they can upgrade those. And that's what you have three technologies then. The UHF, non-biometrically protected, the Prox, not biometrically protected, and a 1356 technology, biometrically protected. But I want to make sure you heard right. We can do Prox biometrically protected, but we can't also biometrically protect a 1356 at the same time.
And allow me to jump in on that one just for a second. And it's difficult in these webinars, obviously, without knowing the true context of the question. But I hope you can appreciate it. If the question is surrounding the actual user experience of having to put their thumb on the card before approaching a reader and wanting it not to be used in non-critical areas, it's something to test in practice. Meaning, why wouldn't you want to make that user biometrically authenticate proof of identity on any reader if it doesn't affect the reader itself? So we do hear that often, and then in practice, people are like, yeah, it takes a half a heartbeat in practice to use the biometric on the card, so why wouldn't I want biometric authentication everywhere? To Darren's point, we do find legacy environments where there may be a few doors that remain Prox, the 125K, and the end user wants biometrically secured 1356 everywhere else. So that's where we've tried to bridge the divide on that. Another quick example, give Darren a chance to take a sip of coffee, is back to the power question. So understand that with the way we've built the platform, because it is a computing device, it has both energy harvesting capability as well as a battery to supplement it. We found this to be necessary in the field where a variety of different readers have different pulsing energy for a variety of reasons. And it may not be enough energy to stimulate the card for the biometric authentication. So we added a battery to ensure that would always be the case, that it would have enough power. So when you're talking about logical access, as Darren's going to show you here, where the card typically is resting on a reader or is touching it, it doesn't require any battery utilization at all. It's more for physical access in environments where the reader is pulsing to ensure it will work. So as Darren said, we advertise a minimum of 3 years of life with 32 to 34,000 transactions or cycles. This is a 5+ year solution in how we've architected it. So back to you, Darren.
Thanks. And a little bit more, the card, which is very important right now, is turned off. Even if I put my finger on it right now, it's doing nothing. So we actually use the power of the readers to actually tell the card to turn on, and that's what ignites the battery. Just a little insight is HID for a few years has tried to make a biometric card. The problem is they realized without a battery in it, it's a 1 to sometimes 4 to 5 seconds for the card to charge up enough to actually function. That was one of their challenges. And I stress that for a reason, because this is a good break to explain to you how much different we build our cards. So our cards are very similar to HID in the fact that they've got technology in them, but they're extremely different and more secure in how we build them. So in Pennsylvania, what we actually do is we take the boards. Typically, HID is very similar. There's 54 cards in a sheet. When they put that sheet together, they then glue the sheets, the plastic on the top and the bottom, and then they take a machine and stamp out the cards. That's why you'll see typically HID never puts anything within a 1/4 of an inch of the edge of the card, because as they stamp it out, it bends it and could break the antennas. We stop at the same point of putting technology in the card. The difference is when we take the technology, we have the reader, we have the battery, and we have the MCU. We don't put the sensor on yet. We then use some of our secret sauce. Can't share all of that with you. And then we put it in a machine that heats the card up to 280 degrees for 38 minutes at 100 PSI. And I know there's an engineer on here somewhere that's saying you cannot heat a battery up to 280 degrees for 38 minutes. I'm sorry, John, did you say, I didn't understand your text. Can you not see my demo?
Only the demo, just in case you were holding up anything in front of your body.
No, I'm using that screen. Thank you.
Okay.
So then we heat the card up to this 280 degrees. So any engineers out there know, typically a battery should explode. These are some of the patents we use in what we call hot lamination. This is what changes our game in the entire world with the card manufacturing world. After we do that, where HID stamps out their cards, we take the sheet with 54 in it. It's a huge sheet and contains 54 of these in it. And then our machine x-rays the card. In our electronics, which is very hard to see, we have metal dots around the card, and the machine x-rays them and then perfectly cuts out the card, so you get 54 of these. So they're perfect every time, no matter what angle the electronics have moved. That machine for us is called the Brownie, very special to us. Then we have another machine, so we take these 54 cards like this, and then it goes in a machine that actually mills out and removes the plastic where the sensor is going to go. So believe it or not, the machine goes and removes that perfectly. On each side of the sensor, there's 2 connection points. We then actually drill all 8 of those. We put solder paste in them, and then we heat the card up again to 200 degrees and put the sensor on it and weld it to the card. Okay, so now you know for redundancy, because a couple questions I know in your mind are, how good are these cards and how robust are they? Well, I've already told you we heat them up to 280 degrees for 280 degrees for 38 minutes, and then we heat it up again to 200 degrees for 2 minutes. The other test we do is we take the card and put it in a special machine and drop it to 50 degrees below zero. Like any electronics, as a computer, it continues to work, it's just a little bit slower. We don't get our 400 milliseconds. Sometimes it takes a second, second and a half. But like any electronics, anybody knows if you left your computer outside, it continues to operate just in a little bit of a slower fashion. Where this whole story goes, though, is because we meld the cards and melt them together, you can't pull them apart like you can pull an HID card apart. We've added an additional layer of security. In addition to security, there's a couple things that we also do. I've been in the industry for 32 years, and I'm sure some of you on the call have been in the industry longer. And you know we've all begged and pleaded our customers our entire life, please don't print your company name on the badge, because if you find it, they can get into your building without any trouble. I'm going to tell you a little story differently. Please now print your logo on your card. It's a secure device. Not only that, we are a credit card company. So we have a lot of technology with cards, but now we can actually embed graphics with full color in your cards. In this case, the customer is going to print their picture here and their name here. This customer is printing their picture here and their name here. We've all been in the industry a long time, and we've all dealt with marketing after we put a new printer in, and they come back and tell you that blue's not my blue and that green's not my green. Now you can go to marketing, and they love it because now they can make beautiful cards and they can put the company name on there. They can put the address on there. At this point, it's a secure device that nobody else can use. The other thing I challenge all of you on here is the fact that you can easily copy any existing card. Obviously, when they're embedded like this, you can't go print a card like this on a printer. So now, before we move on to logical, are there any other questions before we move to logical?
One question did come in into regards with just what we were talking about. If somebody manages to get a hold of the card that runs out of battery, or the battery is no longer working on the card anymore, is there any security feature to prevent unauthorized user to tamper and reuse the card?
The card is designed and melted together, so if you were to try and tamper and play with it, you would destroy the card. There wouldn't be anything left in there to get to. And if the battery is not powered on, just like it is today, the card is secured. It takes power to open up our vault to release it. So at that point, it would still be a secure device, but that's a great question.
Wonderful, thank you.
So let's talk about one of the other big problems we have in the world today. The challenges all of our companies have, as well as our customers have. And this is important, especially when you start talking to the IT, OT, cyber guys who have all the money to spend today, and they have a problem that we can easily fix: the password. Everybody on this call knows the password is the worst thing in the industry, in the world for us. It's what gives anybody access to anything with a username and password. It also allows phishing into our computers. It ruins a lot of corporate security measures, all because of that. Well, today I'm going to show you that we can fix that. So I have a external reader here, and we work with any reader, the OmniKey, HID OmniKey readers, the RFID readers. This is an Identiv reader. I also have an internal reader built into my computer here. You'll see when I put this card down, the card will actually flash. And then I also have a third-party device that plugs in as a miniature, like a mini reader, like it does with your mouse. But today, now I'm going to place the card on the reader. You're going to see the card does nothing. As soon as I place my finger on to verify it's me, it immediately lets me in the computer. No username, no password. And it's very important here because now I have a sense of absolute. The IT team, the security team, the cyber team knows I am the only one that can get into this computer. I didn't have a username, I didn't have a password. Additionally, that means if I click on something, which is 99% of the time in phishing, if I click on something by accident, if I don't have a username and password, there's nothing they can phish me from me and get my username and password because I don't have one. In addition to that, as you notice, I didn't type in the keys, so you can't keystroke me. We work with all software. I'm showing you as an example here, I'm actually using HID Digital Persona. It's all based on global policy, and I have a rule set. I call it the hospital rule because doctors love this. Is as soon as you remove the card, the computer will immediately lock. As soon as you walk back up and put your finger on it, you're back in. If any of you are doing business with hospitals, the Imprivata software and the RFID readers, we work with their technology. They just have to buy a new card. But the doctors love this because if you walk around a hospital today, I will guarantee you at least 80% of the computers you will find are always unlocked. And the doctor's response is it takes them an hour and a half a day of typing in their username and passwords, and every week they've got to change their passwords. This alleviates that problem, okay? Again, simply putting your finger on the card, lets you in. In addition, many of you have heard Microsoft announce FIDO2. Apple, Google. If you're not familiar with FIDO2, it's another strong version like PIV. It's an asymmetrical key, which in layman's terms means the key to encrypt is different than the key to decrypt. Okay. So your card and their system have to share keys. I'm going to show you a real quick example of that today. I'm going to log in here to, well, differently because I got to show you a set. So I'm going to log into Microsoft right now. Most of you, I'm sure, use Office 365 or something like that. And most of you have a password. So I'm going to assume most of you have seen this screen before. This is where you typically enter your username and password. I am not going to do that. I'm going to come down to sign-in options, and I'm going to sign in with a key. It's sitting waiting for me. I've got my FIDO2 card here. I'm going to lay it on the reader. Nothing will happen until I authenticate. I've authenticated. It's now sharing my key back and forth. It takes a second or so to do it to validate. Once it validates it's me, it asks me for a PIN. The reason there's a PIN is we're the only one with biometrics, and all the competitors such as YubiKey and everybody else need a PIN as a third matter because you can share their information. Once I've logged in, it's asking me which account. I have multiple accounts. I have a personal account and a demo account. I can click on demo, okay? I am now in Microsoft and I never entered a username or password. And I stress this for a reason. If Microsoft loves FIDO2 and we put biometrics on top of it, how secure now are your credentials going out on the web? Incredibly. You can't copy them. Now your IT team knows for sure, without a doubt, only the individual that has permission to get in can get in. There's no plausible deniability.
And Darren, let me chime in here just to give you a break a second again. So again, what's difficult about webinars is not knowing if our audience is purely dealing with physical security or also with IT. Obviously, logical access is more of a information technology and operational technology realm. The point I want to make is, you know, if you're not dealing with them, it's obviously where a vast majority of the budget stands and where thought leadership on security is desired. And to get on a brief soapbox for a moment, if you look at the market today, the security industry, look at almost any website, you're going to see a couple buzzwords. You're going to see zero trust. You're going to see identity and maybe identity and access management. What we want to call out and what in the position we're going to start making stronger and stronger in the marketplace is the idea of zero trust is supposed to mean you don't trust anything. A username, a PIN, a password is an element of trust. So what we believe and would contend, and hopefully you'll get your brain around, is the fact that people today that are talking about zero trust that don't use a decentralized biometric like what we provide are double talking. You're talking zero trust, but you're relying on the most fundamental element of trust at the edge. If that sinks in, I mean, that is where SentryCard is starting to take root. That is where we're finding success with our partners, is challenging those tools, Okta, Ping, any of the SSOs, any of the identity and access management systems. The I in identity and access management really means credential management, not truly proving who somebody is. The SentryCard adds that final piece at the edge so you absolutely know who somebody is. Again, we're very passionate about it. That's why we built this solution, and it's early in the game, in the market itself. But every single day that goes by, every breach that takes place, there's a root cause, and it's not knowing who the person absolutely was. And I can't implore you enough to understand that's what this solves for in a form factor enterprises are typically used to carrying, in a mode that doesn't require a rip and replace to start phasing it in. So that's why logical is a key aspect of what we bring. And I have to tell you, last thing, and I'll turn it over to Darren, the ROI is immediate. Ask any IT group how much they're spending per employee per year on the password reset help desk. It's $70 to $100 per employee. It's one of these sunk costs that nobody talks about, but it's real. Talk about their current MFA solution, Duo Security, whatever it is. That's a vulnerable text or SMS. Those are $70+ dollars. The ROI of a SentryCard is immediate. Not necessarily when you're talking just a swap out for a prox card to a physical security officer, because that's a very limited application. The SentryCard is proof of identity into all things the enterprise should be worried about. So that's the sales pitch part of it today. But if you walk away with nothing else, that is the essence of why this is important and could be a massive revenue generator for you if you play it right with your end users. So Darren, back to you.
Before we jump, do we have any additional questions, Kelsey?
No.
Perfect. So I want to stress something to all of you, which is very important here. Anybody who's been in the security industry for a long time knows all biometrics in the security involve a photo of your finger. When you go up to any existing reader, I don't care if it's Demia, Bioscripts, or Prima, it's taking a high resolution photo of your finger on a piece of glass. That's why it's not as good as the sensor. Through all the years, most customers have always said to me, why can't you guys be as good as the sensor on a phone? And again, back to, remember what I told you? Our sensor is the sensor on a phone. The reason it's different is it's a capacitant sensor. It reads the X, Y, and Z instead of just taking a high resolution photo. And right now I'm going to show you our process and how incredible it is. So I have a sensor hooked up to a little chip here, and I'm going to show you a live view of me touching the sensor, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to capture my fingerprint, okay? What I want you to notice here is very important. This is a 3D image of my finger, not a flat image, 3D. So if you don't have a very deep finger, we still capture that 3D of it. We then take your fingerprint and we digitize it. Then we hash it. Then we put a 256 AES encryption on it. And then every card has its own security key. That's why this works so well. Okay. Any questions before we jump into how do we get our fingerprints on the card and store it?
Yes, how many fingerprint templates can a single user register to the card?
Perfect. So I want to explain there are 3 types of cards. We have a demo card, which for demo purposes we share with customers, and you guys can buy some and give them to customers. They are resettable. There's a trick to doing that. Our production card is permanent. Once you enroll somebody in there, it's absolute. It cannot be changed. Any of our competitors, including YubiKey, you can change fingers anytime you want. You lose absolute security. We are about security. And then we have a data center visitor management contractor card, which you can utilize a special Sentry key. We do have to load special firmware on that card from the factory. An example is we have a data center who uses about 100 cards a week, so they bought 150. During the week, they give them out to people, and we'll show you how you enroll. The people give them back. On Sunday night, the manager goes to the vault and gets the key, which is secure to them. Basically puts it on each of the cards, resets the cards, and they have 150 to go each week. Okay.
I think the key, I think to answer the question specifically.
I'm going to the finger. So the question about fingers is this. Standard, out of the box, we do 2 fingers. We recommend 1 per hand, and we don't care if it's the thumb or the pointer finger, you can do 1 of each. If it's absolutely necessary for the customer, we can actually turn on up to 8 fingers. We can't see the value, but we can do up to 8 fingers, but out of the box standard is 2 fingers. Okay. And again, on a production card, it's not resettable. Okay. So I'm going to show you 2 ways of enrolling. Very, very simple. So when I take a card that's brand new, and I'm going to put it on the reader here, we have the security turned off on brand new cards. The reason being is a lot of people like to encode their cards in printers, and we have been unable to figure out how to get your finger to go through the printer with it to keep it unlocked. So until you enroll, it's unlocked. When I place it near here, you'll see the LEDs on the card will turn on and the reader will flash indicating it's a new card. Okay. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to touch the card 6 times until the light goes off with the first finger. 1, 2, 3. And I'll move my finger on just a little bit. 4, 5, 6. And after the 6th, it will flash twice, and it will tell me to do the second finger. I'll put that on there if you can still see. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 is a little longer as it writes the card, and now this card is locked to me. When I place it back at the reader, you will notice the reader will no longer flash and the card will no longer flash because it's now secured. As soon as I put my finger on it, it lets me in. A few people may be asking, yes, this is a reader, it's got something attached to it. It doesn't. What I'm going to show you is our next method. Some of our FIDO2 cards are made like this. So as soon as you put them near any NFC device, an NFC device could be as easy as something like your phone. So actually, I'm going to use you as an example. You're hiring me. You're my boss. Kelsey. And Kelsey, you sent me a card. You and I have established a video call together, and you asked me to turn on NFC on my phone. So I've turned on NFC on my phone. I'm then going to hold up the card to it. I want you to watch. As soon as I put the phone near the card, it lights up. I can then turn this off because I don't need the phone anymore. And now I'm just holding the card in my hands. Once I've turned it on, it's in enrollment mode. Again, I have nothing else in my hands. It'll flash twice. I will switch to my thumb. Once I've completed this, Kelsey knows that I'm enrolled and I cannot change this card. Kelsey can now go into the access control system and the logical system and turn them on, because Kelsey knows this card's in my hands and I'm the only one enrolled to it. As soon as I put it near the reader, you will see it works. Okay. So it takes about 12 to 15 seconds and doesn't require any software. Again, when it comes to little acronyms like we're all familiar with, GDPR, BIPA, CCPA, we're 100% compliant, because guess what? There isn't. There's no database. The company's not storing information. I'm in possession of my encrypted card. Nobody else has access to it. No one else can touch it. I don't have to worry about the company selling my information. And all of this is very, very important because of one important thing. We all want decentralized identity management. We don't want Apples and Googles of the world having to have all of our biometrics. We don't want everyone having it. In this case, I am absolutely validating to them it's me, but I'm in possession of it at all times. I'm the only one touching it.
And it's completely useless if somebody else finds it.
And again, that is if I put it down here and I put the wrong finger on it, it flashes you're not the right person. Questions?
No, we're good to continue.
John, anything else you want to add that we missed, other than I do want to stress everything we've shown you again today is 100% made in the US, and very important when I say this, even with HID technology, any orders you place today, the typical delivery time right now is about 4 to 6 weeks. That timing starts once you complete the HID form. So for us to access HID, the same authorization form you use today with the customer, they fill it out just adding Sentry, they send it into HID, HID sends them back acknowledgement that we've been added, and then we have access to pull any of their corporate 1000, their elite key, or any of their other credentials. So again, 4 to 6 weeks today.
Yeah, and the only closing comments I would make that I think Darren emphasized on the front end, and Kelsey will support through other follow-up, is we're here to support you. We have the teams to go in the field with you, to do the demos for you, either live or remotely. We're honing in our collateral so you can have videos of these kind of things to demonstrate. And really, from experience over the past couple years, and the last year bringing this truly to market, the number one thing is avoiding kind of what's becoming numbing words. People hear biometric and they think facial, they think compliance issues. They hear identity and they think of a back-end system. They're not thinking about decentralized identity at the edge, which is fundamentally what we've built. And if you can get it to the right audience, I can assure you they're interested and have budget for something like this. It will make you look like a thought leader, which we all strive for, and it could be your entree into IT if they're not your existing end user client today. So we're here to support you. We thank you for your time and attention, and we hope to see you in the field together in the not too distant future. And thank you to Kelsey and Software House and Johnson Controls for being our partner and allowing us this opportunity.
And please make sure you do follow us on LinkedIn. There's a ton of updates coming out all the time. Sentry Enterprises, please follow the company. You'll see a lot of cool things coming out.
Wonderful. And we did get one question that rolled in. Do you support EV2 field updates, like enrolling for secure printing at the printer?
Say that question again, please, Kels.
Do you support EV2 field updates, like enrolling for secure printing at the printer?
We program the EV2 on the card. The card can communicate with any of the printers that we do today that accept EV2. So I don't know that I'm answering your question completely. Can we get a little bit more detail? Are we looking for the printer to program the card? Because the EV2, we standard program on the chip.
printer does programming of the card.
Yeah, we already programmed if you have one of our cards with EV2 on it, we already programmed
Well, Derek,
EV2.
let me interrupt you. Here's a clarifying point. When we're talking about a printer, are they talking about an enrollment printer where they're before they issue the badge to the end user and want to use that printer to actually program the chip? And that is possible.
Yes.
When we ship you the cards, they are not biometrically secured and therefore programmable at that point. Only when the 2 fingerprints have been loaded is the card sealed to that user. So yes, in the mode of that. If it's a Xerox printer in the office that suddenly now requires synchronization with a card, EV2 or otherwise, now to Darren's point, the card would have EV2 inside of it, and it would be a matter of that printer recognizing the key in order to allow for use of that device.
Thank you,
Hopefully,
John. I was thinking about the latter versus the first. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And we got a response question answered. Thank you.
So again, yes, like today, just so everyone knows, we use the HDP 5000 printer a lot for our demo cards and printing on the cards. And that's the reason we left them unsecured until you print it and then biometrically authenticate, so you can do any of the encoding with using printers such as the HDP 5000. And I want to stress, everybody understands, any access control system you're working with out there, as long as the cards match the card reader technology, the only thing you need to do with that card access system is change the card number from their existing card to their new card. It's that simple.
and you can phase it in, minimum number of cards at a time, C-suite, privilege access, data center. This is not about a complete rebadge. It's a crawl, walk, run, and everything we've seen is once they start crawling, they start walking broader in the organization rapidly behind it. So we look forward to working with you in the field on those kind of things. And thanks again to Kelsey and the team for coordinating.
Yes, thank you very much. This was a great presentation, and I hope everybody on the line has enjoyed it as much as we here at Software House enjoy the product. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, John, and Darren, as well as your local ASM. If you have any questions, we can go ahead and answer any follow-ups you may have. But thank you again for joining today's webinar.
Excellent. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you,
Bye
John
now.
and Darren. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye now.